Excellent. You know what we're going to do to begin? Be silent. Have a meditation. Is that what would you like? Okay, I'll do a guided meditation for you. So if you just sit down, close your eyes and shut up.
Maybe wait 1 minute.
1 minute?
Yeah, people are still coming in.
Are they still coming in? What? I have to wait, saying nothing.
Song of silence, you can sing
That's okay. See, that was a duet. Okay, so I'm going to start now. It's close enough to 7 o'clock. So only 20 minutes, not that long, just to guide you into calming the mind down and becoming very, very, very peaceful. So when we sit down, some people will be late, but that always happens. And some people have been here early. So it's 7 o'clock, so that's when we said we'd start. So now just please close the eyes. When the eyes are closed, see if you can bring your awareness to how comfortable you are sitting on the chair. How does your body feel? When you become aware of your body, you often find that it may not feel exactly the same as it normally feels when you meditate. I climbed up the stairs today so I can feel my legs a little bit tireder than they usually are. Just to know, without being afraid or without criticizing, it's just to gather the information of how you feel right now. To become aware of your body. And today, I'm going to advise you to follow these 3 principles, which comes from the Emperor's 3 questions similarly. What is the most important time? It's always right now. It's the only time we ever have. As for your future is always made now. This is where you make it. If you want a peaceful future, you make it peaceful now. If you want a healthy future, build that health now. And the second question, what's the most important meditation object? What should you be watching? The most important thing to be aware of is what's happening right in this moment. Whatever this is in front of your awareness, give that importance. Even if it's unpleasant, it's actually happening. If it's unpleasant, we learn from it by being here and noticing it, noticing how it changes. We're not only just being here, we are also understanding it by giving it importance. And never try to get rid of anything while you are meditating this way. Get to know it. And thirdly, be kind to it. Be compassionate and gentle. And as you're compassionate to what you're experiencing right in this moment, that's all you need to do. Don't try and analyze what you're experiencing. Don't even try to understand it. Just get to know it with kindness. And as you're kind and knowing, in this moment, you're not trying to get anywhere, you're not trying to get rid of things, even the sound of the traffic, of the motorbike. Just be kind to it, accept it. Open the door of your heart to whatever's happening right now. just knowing rather than thinking. And you're in this beautiful little cocoon of silence. And all this other noise outside is not yours. So don't engage with it. You're just like the sun which shines on everything. It never complains about what it's shining on. You're just aware. What's it like to be able to hear? But hear the sounds. Don't try and figure out the meanings. And you find you can be peaceful within, even though there's noise outside. Be aware of sounds, and don't try and find out meanings. This is a calming exercise. It's strange. When I do this, I don't choose what to be aware of. Oftentimes I become aware of my breathing. It's kind of natural. When everything else is like background noise, it's not important. It vanishes. What remains is only what you give importance to. And hopefully, like me, you must be easily aware of your breath going in and going out, keeping it simple. What I do naturally is I zoom in, like in there's some video screen, and you allow what's on the outside to fall off the screen as you zoom further in. So any noise, again, tends to be in the background as you zoom into the center of whatever you're experiencing. When there's anything unpleasant, we always like to zoom away, to move away. But in this type of meditation, we go inside, we go deeper in, opening the door of your heart and allowing your awareness, your mindfulness to go deeper inside. I don't mean physically, I mean to the center of whatever you are experiencing. You know it's safe. And even in noisy places, you can go into the center of this, where you can still hear the noise, but it's no longer disturbing. Like if ever you are sick, you can feel the pain, but you go inside, deep inside the center, there you don't feel any negative physical feelings. And as you go inside, zooming in, you find that so much which is on the outside vanishes and disappears. And as it vanishes and disappears, what you're left is finding this peaceful refuge in the center of your own body and mind. If the center is at peace, it's like that peace and comfort radiates out from the center to the rest of the body, to the rest of the experiences of sound and feeling and heat or comfort or tiredness. Only the outside is tired. You go inside, deep into the center of all this, and there's no tiredness. You go to the heart of this body and mind. You go inside, never go on. I've already told a few people today, the next stage of meditation is always right inside the center of where you are, right in this moment. Just going inside, going to the center of this. And don't feel that you need to describe it to yourself. The more peaceful, the more centered you are, the more aware you are in this moment. It's easy to remember. You don't have to take notes. And how does your body feel when the mind centers? How comfortable is the body? Often the body relaxes by itself. And eventually it relaxes so much the outer part of the body disappears too. And what you are aware of, which is a tiny piece inside your body, and mostly the mind. The mind can think, can try and work things out, but that's the distraction. You realize you're not trying to control anything, not trying to make things happen, just being aware without interfering. It just becomes like looking at a leaf fluttering in the wind. A leaf fluttering in the wind. Makes noises that are natural. And after a while, they disappear. Can you be aware of the silence in the middle of things? Inside it's quiet. Inside it's free. And you relax into that silence. You never force. You never try and make it happen. You never strive. Feel your whole body and mind relaxing to the max. You don't have to live up to any ideals, except just to be kind to yourself. Set to be kind to this moment, allowing this moment to be. Seeing if you can disappear. To let go. Put all of the assessing and controlling, put that down. So just knowing this moment, not judging it. That's what we mean by opening the door of your heart. So what comes in, goes out. Doors don't just open things in, it lets things out. You're in this moment, free from the past, free from the future, just being kind to the present. Not aiming to get anywhere, just enjoying being here. Can you notice the pleasure of this moment? At last, you don't have to change anything. You don't have to improve anything. This moment's already here. So it's a waste of time finding fault with it. We abandon the fault-finding mind. This is good enough. A lot of times we just see the mistakes in this moment. Now we see the beauty of this moment. You managed to come here, free afternoon or evening. You're here. So rest and stop trying to do things. We'll be quiet now for 10 minutes. When I speak again, we'll be close to the end of the meditation period. Okay. It's getting close to the end of the meditation period. How do you feel? Don't open your eyes yet. Do you feel more stress inside your body? More tightness inside your mind? Or has your body relaxed and your mind feel more at freedom? How does it feel? This is the Dharma of experience, your experience. Please trust that. It's your best indicator of whether what you've been doing has been working for you. It's not what you should be doing that's important. It's what works for you. You recognize the peace and the health, beautiful sense of freedom which comes inside your mind and in your body when you let go. And when you're ready, please open your eyes to end the meditation. Thank you all. Excellent. Okay. So now I'm supposed to give a little talk, about 45 minutes. What was the subject again?
Going through difficult situations.
Oh, growing through difficult situations.
You know, my cup, you can't really hear.
Speak up a tiny bit, please.
Okay. Please let us know. Sorry?
You can tell somebody who's in yours.
No, it's okay. This is giving a Dhamma talk in difficult, noisy situations. Sometimes what you do is, would it help to close windows? Okay. But anyhow, one of the first things which comes to my mind, is it one of the breeze? Okay, yeah.
Won't help. Most of the noise is going to be coming from the road, though.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Whatever. I don't know, did you find that when you started the meditation, you could hear the noise, it was kind of disturbing. And after a short while, I hope that happened to you as well. It was like the noise vanished. Sometimes people did stop, but sometimes it's just a case you to pay no attention to it. When you pay no attention to it, it vanishes from your conscious awareness. It's amazing that that can happen. And when I said to actually go into the center of it, that was something I talked about, I think, last night over in London. And even my teacher, Ajahn Brahm, he told me that for years and years and years, he had this problem with malaria. Like every monk who lived in the forests, he lived long enough in the forest, you're going to catch malaria. And so once he caught that malaria, it was like always there for him. And then once, he said, when he had a very strong spell of that malaria fever, instead of actually just laying down or just trying to take medication, he decided just to meditate. And he used the simile of going right into the center of that malaria fever. He described it like sitting in the middle of a forest which was on fire. And because it was a forest fire, he could feel the heat grow and grow and grow. And soon the heat became so strong that he had to make sure he was in the very center of it. just like the simile of an eye of a storm. And in the very middle, the very center, it never burnt him. He never felt hot. He realized there was a fire around him, but in the middle, he was quite safe. Then it got hotter and hotter, and then it exploded. And that was the end of the malaria fever. He never had it again. And I always like those little ways of letting nature just do what nature does. Let the noise be the noise, and then learning from it. And that's where we do grow, in adversity and difficulty. Of course, over here in Brighton, we never have a problem with mosquitoes. But I remember some of the problems we had with... Do you have any mosquitoes in Brighton?
Sometimes.
Really? Oh, okay. We're not talking about a rock band called the Mosquitoes or so.
We don't have an area.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But sometimes, when I was a young monk, I was not used to mosquitoes at all. They never had any mosquitoes in London. But then you went to sit in the forest, in the jungles of northeast Thailand. And there, I don't know why, but we never had any mosquito repellent, nothing to rub on your hands or shoulders, had no protection at all. And those mosquitoes, they almost ate you alive. Now over there, if you ever see the photos of monks in the forests, had bald heads, bald shoulders. There's so many places at the dinner table, as I said. And then also that those mosquitoes in Asia, especially Thailand at that time, they knew they saw a bald head and a brown robe, and that was a safe dinner. I don't know if you had anything to eat yet tonight, but imagine you go into a restaurant and at any moment you get swatted. You don't know why, but it just happens. Imagine just if a mosquito went out to dinner, how tense they would become. Their digestion would have been terrible because they never knew. They saw many of their friends sitting in the next table get swatted and killed and went out of their life forever. But when the mosquitoes recognized a Buddhist monk meditating in the forest, in those days they didn't have Buddhist nuns meditating in the forest. That was really unfair on the mosquitoes. So anyhow, when I complained to Ajahn Chah, we used to count with my friend, he was an American monk, how many mosquitoes we had on our arm at one time to see who beat the record. And it was about 60 or 70, honestly. And that was almost unbearable. And only later on when I talked to the other monks, I wondered, how on earth did you endure that? Because how I endured that was when I went to see my teacher Ajahn Chah, and he said, from now on, let the mosquitoes be your teacher. We used to call them Ajahn Mosquito. The thing was, it didn't make any sense. It wasn't that Ajahn Chah was abusing us or exploiting us. There was always something amazing in what he said, which was always unexpected. So I decided to learn from those mosquitoes. You know what I learned? I learned how to meditate properly. Because what I did was just no reaction, to be at peace, to be really still, not to think of ways of avoiding those mosquitoes. And soon, the mosquitoes stopped biting me. It was kind of weird that after an hour or 2 hours of meditation in the jungles, in the evening time, which was mosquitoes feeding time, you look at your arm and you won't see any of the little bumps from mosquito bites. You know what I thought? I thought this is some psychic power of meditation. You go deep and you're kind of protected or something. But later on, many years later, when I came back to the West, into Australia, I read an article that what mosquitoes are attracted to is like carbon dioxide coming out of your pores of your skin. And that when your metabolism goes down and you start to become very calm and peaceful, the amount of carbon dioxide coming out of the pores of your skin reduces enormously. Your metabolism goes down. And basically, the mosquitoes can't find you. You disappear, you vanish. They can't perceive you. I really didn't realize exactly what was happening at the time, but he was teaching me how to be still. And the more still I was, the more I became invisible to the mosquitoes. And you can prove that. That's how I survived. And I was really surprised when you talked to some of the other monks sitting next to me. They didn't know how to avoid those mosquitoes. And this is one of the reasons why, amidst that difficulty of enduring so many mosquitoes, which were dangerous, you managed to find some growth. They were my meditation teacher. Not only that, in those jungles, there were many snakes as well. And many of those snakes, they used to say, just as to understand the danger of the snakes in the jungles of Thailand, said there were 100 species of snakes, roughly. 99 of those species were venomous. If they bit you, you'll be in big trouble. And the 100th species strangled you to death. In other words, they were all dangerous. So how could you grow amongst such a dangerous environment? And how we used to grow was realizing not stillness was important, but kindness, compassion, gentleness. And I don't know how many snakes you've been aware of, but I realized the snakes didn't want to eat me. They were sometimes afraid, and you could see that fear in them. I remember one time when I opened the door to go into my hut, there was a blind spot, just where the door opened towards me, and just underneath that door there was a snake, and I trod on it. And that's a very dangerous thing to do, because if I trod on you, what would you do? Ah! And you would, try and fight back, thinking I was trying to hurt you. But fortunately, in those, obviously, as monks over in those jungles, when you trod on anything, you didn't have any socks on, didn't have any shoes on, and so you could actually feel it. As soon as I felt that the feel of a snake under my feet, straight away I was mindful enough to react almost immediately and just jump off. And so I jumped away, and that snake jumped another way. We jumped in different directions, which was quite lucky. But then afterwards, it was only in a room, and I looked at that snake, straight into its eyes, and apologized, said, "Look, I don't want to harm you." It's amazing when you're a monk for a few years, how you can do stuff like that. But of course, there's another monk who did one better than that. I won't say that monk's name, but Ajahn knows him. And he was a monk who, in the middle of the jungle in Thailand, a big snake came to him. And that snake was a king cobra. In that part of Thailand, they gave that snake a nickname, one-step snake. And that nickname meant that if it bit you, you had one step left of your life. Then you would die. Incredibly venomous. So what would you do if you were sitting on Brighton Beach and we're supposed to be going there tomorrow, aren't we? I know. and a big snake came right up to you. This was like in the jungle in Thailand. Big snake crawled through the ground and lifted its head, opened its hood right in front of your nose. What would you do? It's a waste of time running away. That was what was one of the scariest things. Okay. That was one of the scariest things. That's the snake crawling up. That's okay. It's nice having a bit of musical accompaniment to my talk. Whenever anything goes wrong, never be embarrassed. Use that as a nice part of your talk. Thank you for arranging that. It took a while that we arranged it together. So it's a waste of time running away. It scared me to see just how fast those big snakes were. They ran much faster than I could. They could even swim in lakes. And they could climb trees. Basically, there was no escape by physical movement. So the only thing which this monk did, imagine this big snake in front of you. Just, one bite, you've only got one step left in your life. Would you be afraid? This monk instead put his hand up and patted the snake on the head, saying, "Thank you for visiting me." Mm-hmm. And that was in Thai. He said, "Thank you for visiting me." And what do you think that snake did? That snake enjoyed every moment of having his head patted. It's such a rare opportunity to have your head patted. I mean, how many other snakes get that opportunity to have your head patted by a holy monk? So he stayed there enjoying every moment of it for a while. And then he put his head down, closed his hood, put his head down, went to see one of the other monks. And the other monk told me, sort of, "Look, go back to him. I'm not doing that." But that monk also, this brings back to mind just the predicament over in Anukampa Bhikkhuni project, the grove we have there, the new monastery. Even then there's always a council just, want to find fault, just testing you out. But that happened to us over in Australia, in Perth. We were building a nice monastery and had to put in all these building applications and planning change. And then the mayor of the local council came to visit us. And this mayor, he was really fat. He was wearing a suit and the buttons in the front of his suit were always about to pop. And this monk, Ajahn Brahm, he was staying with us for a while in Australia. And I saw that monk, Ajahn Brahm, go towards that mayor. And when he went towards the mayor, I could not stop him. And this monk started rubbing the mayor's belly. Now you saw that shy representative coming to that our monastery. Never call it my monastery or your monastery. It's always our monastery. And imagine that if Ajahn Brahm was there instead of me and started rubbing, was he fat? The guy from the Shire, of the cattle, a little bit. Imagine, that's what you should do, rub his belly. And I thought that was the end of that monastery, of our monastery. Imagine a mayor having his belly rubbed by a monk who didn't know any better. But all that time, it was one of those wonderful experiences, memories I'll always treasure. The mayor started smiling and then giggling, like gurgling like a baby. It had been years since he had his tummy rubbed. And honestly, not exaggerating, from that time on we had hardly any difficulty with getting our planning permission and all these other stuff which we needed to build things. And sometimes I like those experiences, even though I thought it was going to be trouble. We learned so much and grew so much. And that's kind of been the nature of, my life. You don't do anything without some trouble and difficulties. It's just how you make use of those trouble and difficulties to learn and grow. It's not just learning and growing. It's learning how to grow together. The difficulties mean that you have to work with your friends. And if there's any difficulties and problems with them, you can still love them. This is one of those wonderful sayings. It's in the Chinese literature. Love a tiger at a distance. May all tigers be happy and well, but please, not in my monastery. So you always you learn how to deal with disappointments, with frustrations. And that's where life becomes very, very powerful. I think I did tell this story last night, but I was not in Brighton last night. This is where, over in Malaysia, when I was in Malaysia, I go there very regularly, it's very close to Australia, and in Malaysia I was told that there was one disciple there, not really a disciple, somebody they knew, a friend of a friend, who had been seriously traumatized, and that no one yet had been able to help them. So I remembered, that how can you really help someone? How can you learn how to help with very serious trauma? And what I had heard and what I'd understood is all of the usual techniques you have to put aside. All your old ideas you have to let go of. And so when I saw this lady, then I just said, I'm listening to you. And when you're listening, the wonderful thing about learning how to listen, I've been told that Brighton is full of therapists and psychologists and healers. Is that true? So you must know more than I do. Do you? So they said they've been to every psychologist and psychiatrist and therapist who was available to them in Malaysia. Nothing was working for them. So when I did that little bit of helping, the first thing I did was put aside every theory I'd ever known, including Buddhist theories as well, and just said kindness and openness and listening. So I listened very openly to what she told me. And because there was no feedback as I was listening to her, at least she trusted me enough to say exactly what had happened to her, at least as much as she could. And as she was telling me, I had to resist the urge to show my horror at what she'd endured. It was a very violent rape, many times. And it's disgusting. That's how I feel about it now. But when she told me this, I knew enough about meditation to keep my mind totally still, and then allow the information to come in, and then see what response came out. I trusted my mind. It had grown in kindness, compassion, as understanding as I could. And then what came out of my mouth shocked me. It was an autonomous response. What I said to this lady, said, you were so fortunate to have been raped in such a way. In repeating that now, I have to resist, feeling embarrassed, shocked by what I said. But one thing I know is when there's really deep problems, you have to trust some innate understandings which don't accord to logic, which seem to be totally inappropriate. When I said that, and I've never been raped, I've had a very fortunate life, and I said, you've been so lucky. Then straight away, the reason why I said that came out. And what I explained to her is that, I have some confidence that you will find a way out of this, especially when you find its meaning. Have you known a lot the meaningless violence, meaningless exploitation, meaningless hurt which comes your way? When it has no meaning, that makes it so much worse and harder to deal with. When the hard times, the difficulties, the great difficulties are without meaning, it just makes it almost impossible. And so the meaning I said was, you will find your way out of this. And then you'll be able to do something which I will never ever be able to do. You'll be able to see someone else who's been through that pain, that dark places, that pitch dark places, and be able to take their hand and say something which I will never be able to say, which is, I know how you feel. I really know. I also know the way out. Come with me. You'll be able to help and heal others. That's something I will never be able to do. When I said that to this lady, she nodded. She had a path. It was not like a pathless black hole, which you would have to endure forever. And there was also a way out, a path out, with the meaning that she'll be so kind in the future, help others. So this is one of the ways, which I learnt and she learnt, just how to look at things in an impossible way. She hadn't heard that before. I remember there was another therapist. We have many monasteries over in Australia, and one of those monasteries is in the town of Bundanoon, at Santi Monastery, for nuns, bhikkhunis. And over there, close by, in the same basically district, there was a very wise psychotherapist. I don't know what you call her, but she wrote it, and I said, okay, that was what she wrote about an experience of a wealthy American lady who again had stage 4 cancer, depression, and so many illnesses that no one could help her. And so she came to see this therapist over in Australia. And she said that money is not a problem, but I really do need help. Nothing is working. She was dying. And so, straight away, this therapist had no idea what to do, but then went silent. And when this therapist went silent, then the words came out automatically. She said, you should carry on playing the violin. And at that, this American lady just burst into tears. It's like we do have connections with each other. It's like that we can tune into one another. And I often say this, that when I give a talk, I really try to look at each one of you in the eye, to see if these examples, if these talks resonate with you. And that's what she was doing. And this lady, you picked it up straight away, and this American lady burst out crying. And only afterwards she said what had happened in her life. She had been brought up in a very wealthy family, and her parents had told her that you don't need to play the violin, just do other things, to get a good husband, and be a good person, and carry on the family traditions, whatever it was. She was told what to do, rather than doing what she loved doing, which for her was just simple, like playing a violin. Have ever you felt that what you really love doing you can't do? And because of that, it has huge psychological and health problems. I was always a very fortunate young man. So fortunate that I managed to do what I always really, really wanted to do, which was to become a monastic, honestly. And I know that because when I first became a monk in Thailand, I was only 23. Very young. But I remember the first night after I took my novice ordination, I would wake up in the middle of the night in Bangkok with a nightmare. I'm being honest, the nightmare was that I was a layperson. And I'd open my eyes and sweating and fearful, and then see my robes neatly folded by my bed. I always slept on the floor in Thailand. I always liked sleeping on the floor. You know why? Because I was always afraid of rolling out of bed. On the floor, you just roll to a different side of the room. I just really enjoyed that. Even now, in the cave in which I live, I sleep on the floor. Now, the person who's looking after me tonight, sleep in a bed. But actually, I prefer floors. Because I'm a monk and a senior monk. They said, no, you can't sleep on the floor. We'll get you a bed. Okay. I remember doing that once when I was in a hotel in Cambodia at a conference, representing Australia on something or other. And I remember I decided I'm not going to sleep on the bed. I'll sleep on the floor. So I slept on the floor. I remember the housekeeper, in hotels, the housekeeper comes in and they saw, that the bed hadn't been slept on. And I said, I'd be sleeping on the floor. I kind of like doing things which people don't expect, but nevertheless, which are very healthy for me. So anyway, let's go back to that lady who had stage 4 cancer and was dying. So she went back to the United States, got out a violin, started playing it again. What else can I do? He said, also, see if you can go out and start. What can you do? Start reading nice stories to kids who've been abandoned in hospitals or in prisons. So she became like a storyteller. And that gave her such a great sense of fulfillment. To be able to be healthy, it's not just taking, it's also be able to give to others. And you learn that because of all that pain and difficulty you've been through. I've noticed this, that all of those people who become great teachers had all been through hell. Those people had an easy life. They find it difficult to relate to others. I say that because I use a simile which I hope that many of you have heard before, about truckloads of dung. That was the title of one of my books in Australia, in the United States. Who ordered this truckload of dung? I had a big argument with the publishers, Wisdom Publication, and I said, look, that's not what the title I told you to print. The title I told you to print was Who Ordered This Truckload of Shit? And why are you saying you can't say that? Haven't you got freedom of speech in US? No. And if any of you get offended that I use the word shit, please know that the Buddha said, this is in the yes, of non-conflict, the Sutra of non-conflict. He said you should, whenever you go and give a talk to monks or nuns, please you must talk in the local language. What city are we in right now? What local language do you use? Yeah, shit. You're not doing that to offend people. You're using those words to relate to others and to do stories which really surprise you. Yeah, I've got plenty of time, have I? No. You've got 10 minutes, okay. This is another little simile. I meant to say this a couple of nights ago, but I never did. So I'm putting it in now. Is after a while you change your attitude to what you think is disgusting, what you think is going through huge trouble. After a while, when you're through at the other end, you say, thank you for that experience. I've done a lot of work with people with cancers. I don't know why, it's such a common disease and so amenable to changes of attitude, to wisdom. I've seen so many people whose cancers have been healed. And one of those people, I'm going off track a little bit, but I don't mind. One of those people whose I saw it was there. His name was Ted, and he was from that's right, the Lancashire side of the Yorkshire border, and that's where he grew up. And in those days, many of those people, used to smoke cigarettes. And because of smoking cigarettes, eventually he got a lung cancer. And when he got lung cancer, at least you have lovely places like hospices where they're not trying to heal you. They're just trying to make sure your last days are comfortable. And so we always used to say, you go in the hospice, in a stretcher, and you come out in a box. In other words, it's your last place. And so I remember going to see him, and he told me this story which was so accurate, and I think this is relevant over in Brighton. His story was the first night in the hospice, the nurse looking after him told him, "What do you want for dinner this evening?" And he started saying that because he's not just got cancer, he's got high cholesterol, and his heart is in danger of stopping. And so he can't have anything oily. He's also got diabetes, so he can't have anything sugary or sweet. And he's also got hardened arteries. He can't have any salt in his food. And like that, the nurse said, "Stop it, Ted." Ted was a really good friend. "Stop it. You're not going to die of any diabetes problems or any high cholesterol problems or hardened arteries. You've got lung cancer. You're going to die of that in about 3 days. So you can eat whatever you want. And at that, the nurse said that Ted's eyes just went really wide. You mean all that food which my wife told me I couldn't eat for years, I can eat that? Yes! And so Ted ordered the greasiest, oiliest, sweetest, sugary, saltiest food which he had resisted for so many years because of his health. Because when you're about to die, what's the point of health food? You're going to die. So he ordered this lovely, beautiful food like greasy fish and chips. What else is on offer for tomorrow?
Oh, no.
And anyway, all the stuff he hadn't eaten for years, which was really healthy for him, was it? But anyway, in about a week or 10 days after he entered that hospice, he walked out under full remission. I kind of like that story. The reason is to be healthy needs happiness as well. Joy. That's incredible, powerful therapy. So just eating what you like, and in moderation, of course, but eating some things which you really like, really uplifts you, and you enjoy. That's not an excuse to indulge. I don't want any of you to sue the organisers of these events. But you can understand how that happiness just really uplifts you. That's one of the reasons why I tell stupid stories. In other words, jokes. Whenever I give these talks, because that makes you pay attention. And it's usually the talks, the stories like the story of Ted, which you remember more than anything else. Do you understand really what makes us healthy and happy? Or do we follow what other people say? What the experts say? Am I an expert? I know how to deal with so many diseases. Like even the cancers. I got another 5 minutes, yeah. Even the cancers. I think that motorbike has got cancer. Anyhow, there's one of these organisations I've been volunteering for years. They used to call themselves a Cancer Support Association in Perth. And then they called themselves something else and then something else. And eventually they were doing such good work, they got a big grant from the government. And because they got a big grant from the government, they just built a huge complex of facilities in this community centre over in Perth. And then they wanted to open it, the grand opening. And the head of the government in Western Australia, his name was Colin Barnett, was one of the VIPs. And then they told me the second VIP was this monk called Ajahn Brahm, me. And I said, hang on, I'm not a politician. And this is a Christian country, or a Christian area. Why have you invited me to be the VIP to open this centre? And they told me that because I've been going for over 35 years, every year, and I've been inviting them to our monastery for 35 years. And I said, of course, I'm a monk, that's what you do. And then they said, no, that's why you're one of the VIPs. And they told me one of the amazing stories of why they wanted me to be the VIP. The reason was that the very first year I went there, that one of the survivors of breast cancer, I don't know if you've ever had breast cancer, I'm sure some of you have. It's a very traumatic illness. Many have their breasts removed. This is one of those ladies, had their breasts removed. She went into remission. She was fortunate. Then afterwards, she was always afraid. And the fear was, if it happened again, I don't think I could endure it again. So she put up her hand and asked the question, what do I do about that fear? I'm so afraid if it happens again. And so I told her, what would happen if it didn't happen again? And I said that straight away with such power that she understood it. And I gave the story of the famous English philosopher. How many of you have studied philosophy in this land? You have. I don't know if you ever studied this gentleman, incredible philosopher, called W.T. Pooh. He never went to any university. He was very smart. And one day Winnie the Pooh was walking with his little friend Piglet back from Rabbit's house, and as they were walking through the forest there was a big storm, and they're still a long way from home. And the more they were on their walk, the more the trees swayed, and first twigs and then branches, and whole trees fell down. And that's when little Piglet asked his friend Pooh, Pooh, what would happen? What would happen if a tree fell when we were underneath it? Which was actually a real possibility. You know what the great philosopher replied? What would happen if it didn't? Which was far more likely. And that meant that they could walk home safely. You know, when I flew from Singapore into London, the flight which I was on, the plane, was the same make as that plane in India which crashed recently. Did ever I think of what would happen if my plane crashed? It was the same like Boeing 777 or whatever it's called. What would happen if my plane crashed? And then what's the answer? What would happen if it didn't? Which is far more likely. Even when I was in Sri Lanka recently, there's a new type of dengue fever called chicken flu or something. It's actually, that's his nickname now. A few Sri Lankans say, what's it called? Chikungunya. Okay, something. And so anyway, I was there, they said, Ajahn Brahm, be careful, don't go to Sri Lanka. You know, because I always hang around with so many people, said you'll get chicken flu. Or chicken, whatever it was. And then they said, what would happen if you did that? And of course my response was, what would happen if you didn't? And have you ever noticed that what you're afraid of, you make happen? I've seen many couples who their relationship fell apart. I'm really great with marriage counselling because I haven't been married ever. But a lot of times, if you're afraid of the relationship falling apart, you make it fall apart. If you're afraid of traffic, of driving, then of course you are so tense, you can't relax enough to be a safe driver. What you're afraid of, you often make happen. And I see that now I should finish off the talk part. Okay, you're not going to throw it over me. Thank you. Why not? It's nice and cool. And a lot of times, have you ever seen those festivals in Asia, the water festivals, where you throw water over each other? That's very common in Thailand. And monks are not exempt. And I remember just one of my friends at the time, that was Ajahn Brahm. He never forgave me for this. That as we were going outside the hall on the Thai New Year Day ceremony, as we were going outside the hall, someone stopped me to ask me a question on meditation. So I said, yeah, okay. And then I told Ajahn to lead the monks out of the hall. And there was a bucket of water aimed for me. It's supposed to be for me. But the first monk who came out, instead of me, was Ajahn, and he got the whole bucket of water. He never forgave me for that. So water is okay. It's hot days, it cools you down. But these are things which, how would you react? With laughter or with anger? When anything bad ever happens, remember always Ajahn Chah would always teach me to react with laughter, never with anger. That's one way in which I grew in understanding how to deal with difficulties in life. Okay. Ha ha ha. Okay. So let's finish this part of the talk. And now for some questions and answers. What I call the interrogation time.
Question in brief.
Okay.
Recording.
Okay, yes, okay. Who has the first question? Yeah, hi.
So my friend spent a long time in Thailand and came back, and she wants to know, how can a person live a Buddhist lifestyle in the West?
Okay. I had a friend who went to Thailand and obviously was impressed.
Yes.
And how can you live a Buddhist lifestyle in the West? First of all, you don't do things the way that the Thais do it. You don't throw water over everybody in April the 13th, which is the New Year Day. It's pretty cold already at that time, and you'll probably get sued for doing things like that. But you get what's the heart of Buddhism, which is the kindness and the gentleness and a sense of freedom of inquiry and finding out what the truth is, not through books, but through the deep meditations, to feel what the right answer is. And that's something even the Thais have forgotten. When I first went to Thailand, one of the reasons I went there was it was supposed to be the land of smiles. And it was. It was a very happy country. They had this wonderful sense of simplicity. They said there's water in the paddy fields, there's fish in the rivers, and there's enough stored rice in the storage sheds. What more can you want in life? That sense of simplicity led to a sense of fun. Now remember, many times, as a young monk, over 50 years ago, going into those villages, and in those villages there was no electricity. The innovation was brilliant. They had little bowls which they put kerosene in, and then they used the toothpaste tubes. They cut the top of the toothpaste tube off, because that was a nice little hole. They put a rag in there, and they'd float it on the kerosene and light the wick, and that gave them light, but was very smoky. And the smoky was what kept the mosquitoes away. And there's enough light there, they could see one another. And every night they'd sit around this little light and just tell themselves stories all night. all silly stories. And they'd change the stories every time. But they were kind of wise and kind stories. They spent time every evening together telling stories. And the happiness of a family is created when we do tell those stories. And basically, never let the truth stand in the way of a good story. Just tell afterwards, yeah, it's not quite true. But it was enjoyable. Spending time together, growing up together. And I must admit, I admired that, and I felt jealousy that my family had a TV. That's where I grew up. And in those days, we only had 2 channels, BBC and ITV, in those days. And we would argue almost to death about what program we were having on. And this was like 70 years ago. I don't know how you survive when you've got so much choice. You understand what I mean?
Everyone watches their own TV.
Really?
Everyone watches it individually, that's the problem.
So you're isolated, alone. That sense of family in Thailand, my goodness, they all look after each other. Yeah, they argue with each other sometimes, and they go out of the room, but then they come back in again because it's family. And that idea of family is so strong. I think that's maybe what we've lost in the West over so many years. And the simplicity enhances the sense of family. I do remember that lovely story about happened over here it was in Sussex. I saw this written in a newspaper article, which was published in Australia. There was one lady who won the English lottery, I think 20 million or something, sterling. It must be a few years ago. If you won 20 million British pounds, what would you do? Who would give it to Anukampa Bhikkhuni project so they can pay off their debts?
Too much.
I can help you out there. But what she did, she bought herself a mansion in Sussex. It was quite a few years ago. Does the mansion cost 20 million? I don't know. Anyway, that's apparently what she did a few years ago. And 1 year later, she sold it at a loss and bought a small terraced house somewhere in London. And the reason was why? She said living in a big house separated her from the people she loved. And many times her husband was in one wing of the house, her son was in another wing of the house, daughter was somewhere else in the house, had so many rooms, it was separating them. And I remember this, as I said, a poor upbringing. That was one of my benefits, I reckon. Just the house, there's a council flat in West London, in Acton, the poorer part of Acton. Remember that council flat? It was really, really small. You know, that room which you gave me to stay in Anukampa Bhikkhuni project. Grove, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Anukampa Grove. I'm glad you know where you live. But anyhow, that room is actually, you can put all the rooms of the flat which I grew up in that room, in just that one room. It was a small house, but I loved that place. You'd always see your brother, and you'd see your mum and dad. We're all so close together. I still remember when my mother and father had arguments. Even though they had arguments, I kind of enjoyed seeing them argue. You know why? Because they wouldn't speak to each other for about an hour or 2 hours afterwards. Then I knew what was coming next. They'd make up. There was no escape. They had to live together. And they learned ways of letting go of things. And to this day, I love that reconciliation moment. It was worth waiting for, when they would hug and say sorry. That type of reconciliation, they couldn't escape from their kids. We'd see it. And that means I was never afraid of falling out with somebody, as long as I knew how to fall, in together again. And that's where you got all these lovely little stories from, about why on earth do people fall out? Why do you argue with people you love? Often it's because you see what's wrong. I'm not talking about toxic relationships, which is best you leave as soon as possible. I'm talking about the majority of relationships, good people. And sometimes I wonder, I know the one partner, I know the other partner, and they're really nice people. Why can't they live together in peace and harmony? A lot of time it is because they can always see the faults in one another. They can forget about the beautiful things in one another. This is one of those little exercises which I learned and which I did and taught other people to do. Sometimes, if you have an argument with one another, just go into your room and get out a piece of paper. Put your name on the top of the piece of paper like you're at school, and draw a vertical line down the center of the piece of paper. And then on the left-hand side, just put all the things which you don't like in that relation, all the things which really piss you off about them, all their negative, unfair comments. It's very easy to fill the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, all the things which you admire about that person. I remember doing that with a prisoner in jail who was just so depressed. He thought he was hopeless. And I said, why? Put it down. He wrote out all the reasons he'd hurt others, all the terrible things he'd done. And he had to put in between the lines to get enough space to put all the things which he hated about himself. And then, okay, the right-hand side, all your good qualities. He said, I haven't got any. I remember this. You must have something good. He said, no, I don't. I'm in jail. I'm a prisoner. I'm a terrible person. He said, well, somebody said that, you look after the prison cat. Oh, yeah, but that's nothing. Put that down. Well, that doesn't count, does it? Yeah, it does. Did you actually feed the cat this morning? Yeah, I gave it some milk. Put that down. And once he started putting one or two things down on that list, it became easy to find more things to put down on the good side of the ledger. Why is it as human beings we always like to focus on the faults? We are fault finders instead of looking at the beautiful side, the good side. The two bad bricks. I laid two bad bricks. I wanted to destroy the wall. And then I decided to count the good bricks. Actually, someone else told me you should look at the good bricks in that wall, which I'd done. And there were so many, many, many more. There's some people have come to Bodhinyana Monastery recently and said, where are those bad bricks? And so I knew where they were, so I found them. But someone has actually put a shelf on them so you can hardly see them. Sorry?
I thought you just didn't know where they were anymore.
Yeah, I didn't know, but I knew roughly where they were. So I went looking for them. They weren't important to me anymore. Faults, we all have faults. Okay, yeah, sorry. I always give sermons when someone asks a question. But anyway, thank you for the question. Is that enough for you?
Plenty, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, next question. Oh yeah, okay.
Do you have a favourite sutra? Wow.
Favorite sutra. Many favorite sutras. For the one which comes up, it's basically many favorite ones. For the one which I'd probably like the Mahasachaka Sutta. And I like that one simply because that shows the story of the Buddha's own enlightenment. And that was being so ascetic for so many years, and it wasn't working. And then, after being ascetic for so many years, and getting nothing at all, he decided to try another path. And this was the path which he remembered from when he was a 6 or 7-year-old kid, when his father was doing a little ploughing ceremony. And he was just a 6 or 7-year-old kid getting bored. He didn't have an iPhone in those days. If there was iPhones available, he'd been on that. He would have been on that. Instead, he just sat under a tree, crossed his legs, and started meditating. And don't think a 6-year-old or 7-year-old can't meditate. Remember this lady in Perth who gave birth, and after breastfeeding her new kid, she told me, and honestly it was true, then this 7-year-old kid, this newly born kid, after feeding itself at the mother's breast, just crawled onto the tummy, sat across its legs in full lotus, and started meditating. It freaked the mother out. She said, honestly, that happened. So people are remembering things from previous lives. So anyway, the Buddha meditated under the rose apple tree while the father was doing a ceremony, and got into his first jhana. And afterwards had dismissed that for years. Something so pleasurable. How can that be any part of monastic life or spiritual life? And then only after trying everything else, he thought, maybe that's the way to Sambodhi, to enlightenment. And then he decided it was. So the next thing he did was eat properly, wash, sleep properly. It took him a while to recover. It's much easier to get into deep meditation when you're healthy. But that's what he did. He went to Bodh Gaya. And at that time, that was like almost a perfect place, next to a river, like a park, with cool trees. And that's one of the reasons why Anukampa Bhikkhuni Grove is a beautiful place, and I'm very happy it's a beautiful place. It's conducive to deep meditation. Some people feel you have to be an ascetic. In other words, to be really thin, sleep out, and just torture your body in order to get enlightened. You can try that if you wish, but that's not going to work. Even our retreat center, which I built, I really said I built it, over in Perth. Okay, if you can't hear, please shout out or something. But even that retreat center over in Perth, that I made sure that every room has an ensuite. And the first people who went there said, why are you wasting all this money making it so comfortable? And I said, because that's important. If you have a comfortable abiding for your body, it's so much easier to get these deep meditations for your mind. The asceticism does not work. And so, the same, just with the Buddha in Mahasachika Sutta. Then he sat down and he didn't strive, he let go of the world. How does this become perfectly still? This water. Can I hold it still? I do this demonstration so often. Do you trust Ayachanda? Okay, is it still?
No.
Why? I'm not being mindful, am I? And now be mindful. Is it still?
Try harder, Ajahn.
Yeah, I'll concentrate.
More.
I'm trying.
No, it's still wobbling.
Still wobbling even more. How can I get this water to be perfectly still? Let it go. Put it down. Detach. Renounce. And if it gets still all by itself. As Ajahn taught me, have a look at the bushes in the garden or the trees. The leaves only move because of the wind. If the wind stops moving, is that my fault? Oh, we're running out of time.
Carry on. No, you.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, the leaves on a bush or a tree only move because of the wind. If the wind stops, the leaves keep moving, but less and less and less, until they become perfectly still. That's their default state. I love that statement, which means the nature of your mind, if you could leave it alone, let it go, just be mindful, but not be so demanding. It becomes very still. It's a wonderful thing to notice. You don't do anything. You just get out of the way. Let it be. And you get some amazing deep states of meditation.
Do you want a drink, Ajahn?
Oh yeah, that's another way to let the water become still. Drain it, put it in your mouth. Okay. Next question. Yeah, go on. Did I answer yours first? Yeah. Okay.
So I'm interested in the apparent contradiction between the practice with mosquitoes or whatever the other difficulty might be, and needing to be comfortable, because you were not that comfortable in the forest in Thailand, but you were using the huge numbers of mosquitoes eating you alive as your practice, and how that
I had no choice.
you had no choice.
If I had a choice,
But if you're really comfortable, so it seems like a contradiction that if you're really comfortable, then that's the access to
that's not. Yeah.
But actually, it was discomfort and discomfort in the body that also was a great practice for you.
But that was that's what I learned. I had to let go, and I probably wouldn't have done that if there was no mosquitoes to help me. Now, it's wonderful to have a comfortable place where you can be so still. So it's what's helpful, not what's necessary.
You said a bit more about the helpful and the necessary?
Yeah, the helpful is to have few disturbances. Just like it'd been wonderful if we didn't have noise. Many of you would have got probably a deeper meditation. But I thank that noise because that showed you it's still possible. One of those other experiences which I had as a young monk, one of the diseases which I did get in those days was scrub typhus. A little mite in the forest would actually bite you and infect you with a disease which was so similar to typhoid that when the Western monks started getting sick with this disease, the local hospital and doctors never knew what it was. Because according to the health department, the scrub typhus never existed in northeast of Thailand. What was happening is all the locals had immunity. It was only when the foreigners, the white Westerners, we got it straight away. It was a very bad disease. And because they didn't know what it was, that they had a cocktail of antibiotics. And I must remember and recall the nurse who would come into the monk's ward to give the injections of antibiotics. Now, don't be afraid. A monk is not, a young monk like me, is not supposed to be even touched, by these young Thai nurses. But this young Thai nurse, she was middle-aged, and she was hardly going to go into a beauty contest. She was built like a water buffalo. And she had to be very tough, because those needles they used 50 years ago, they're all recycled. And I'm pretty sure they'd been used in Bangkok first of all, and then sent to these poor hospitals in the third world country, in the third world part of that country. And the monks were supposed to be the tough guys. So she never injected me, stabbed me in the bum in the morning and another one in the afternoon. And so there's no possibility of any lust towards that nurse. I always remember that I had such a sore backside after about 3 or 4 weeks in hospital. And even Ajahn Chah came to visit me. Imagine a monk like that came to visit this young monk, and he had lots of compassion, but his bedside manner was hopeless. He looked at me and said, I'm either going to get better or I'm going to die. And that's it. The thing is, you can't argue with that. So if ever you go and see your poor mother or grandma in hospital, so well, according to Buddhism, you're either going to get better or you're going to die, so don't worry. That wasn't helpful at all. But then eventually I decided nothing else to do, wasn't getting better, so I decided just to let go and meditate. And that was amazing. Because as I said, Ajahn Chah said he got into the center of a big forest fire. That's how it seemed. And that's where his malaria fever stopped. For me, it just didn't have a choice. Remember that word, didn't have a choice. I didn't make this happen. I didn't strive. I just went into a deep meditation state. And where the body vanished and you're just blissing out. And I never thought that was possible if you were so sick in a fever. I never thought that was possible with the posture I was in. Because that's one thing which I really noticed when you came out. A leg was over this way, a leg was over that way. Have you ever been to a hospital visiting a relation who's in a fever, who's really sick, has really no energy left at all? You know, they can't sit in a full lotus position or anything even appropriately, like any posture I've ever seen in a meditation magazine. But it worked. This is how my body felt comfortable, and how the body can vanish. And that taught me a lot about meditation.
So that's the necessary bit, that's to get through the difficulty, rather than using that as a method of developing better meditation in the face of the difficulty.
Oh, both, yeah.
Both.
You don't intentionally inflict suffering on yourself.
No.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah.
Yeah. The suffering comes.
The practice does, right?
Right.
Yeah. The suffering comes naturally anyway. Yeah.
Thank you.
But it also means you get intense suffering and you don't get afraid of it anymore. You don't add to it. Fear is one of the problems which makes our life so much worse. No, don't be afraid. Be adventurous. If it all goes wrong, you just die and have another chance next time. I kind of like that idea of rebirth. It means that, you know, there's no real mistake. You learn to do it right next time. Make sense? Okay, next question before I... Yeah, go on.
Is it possible, as a layperson, to make significant spiritual progress, or
Yes.
to get into deep meditation?
Yes.
What advice would you give?
Just first of all, why on earth do lay people feel that it's a difficulty? You just need to let go. The first deep meditation I had, I was still a student, at a university. But the problem with getting deep meditation as a student, I had a steady girlfriend, but after deep meditation, I never realized at the time, no one actually taught me, that's one of the dangers of deep meditation. Whatever partner you have, they're not so important anymore. The letting go, being detached becomes even more important. I felt kind of guilty later on when I realized what those deep meditations do for you. Many times people used to ask me, are there any dangers in getting into deep meditation? And there are. You tend to lose your hair. Honestly, you're touching something which is so beautiful. And I never realized at the time, but that was where that girlfriend was not so important for me anymore. So yeah, but lay people do it. Look, okay, I love telling stories, I can't stop it. But I was teaching one meditation retreat in Australia, in Jhana Grove, and this guy turned up. It was the summertime, and he turned up in traditional Australian dress. Traditional Australian clothes is like thongs, shorts, and a dirty t-shirt. And that was it. And he had lots of tattoos on him. And in those days, that was quite rare. And so when I saw him, I judged him. Please excuse me, but I'm being honest with you. I judged him. I said, are you on this retreat? You know there's a prison just down the road over there. If you come to visit your friends, this is the wrong place. That's how I actually said that, or similar. And then he said to me, he said, no, I'm on the list. And I looked at the list and he was on there. And so I said, okay, sorry. And in that retreat, he was a star meditator. He came to see me on the interview time and blew my mind what he was experiencing. He was getting into these jhanas, real dinky-dai jhanas. You know what dinky-dai means? It's an Australian term. I mean, real, authentic. And I thought, wow, I cannot predict who comes on my retreat and who gets these incredible experiences. And he moved over to Sydney, or somewhere around there, and it's changed his whole life. It's always for the better, though. So I cannot predict who's going to get these, who's not going to get them. You know, it makes me just really happy when someone comes and asks the questions. But be careful. There was this one gentleman, Lee Basington, who wrote a book about the jhanas, or samadhi, and he said he listed 5 people who he trusts, knows what they're talking about with regard to the deep meditations. And he listed them in order of the easiest one, to actually confirm that you have a jhana, and the hardest one. And the toughest of these people to ask is this monk called Ajahn Brahm. I will not say you've got a jhana if I have any doubts about your experiences. That's one of the toughest. Second toughest was Part Oxider. But I forget who was the third. Because I don't want you to feel you've got these attainments or these experiences when it's not true. And when you do have them, wow, that makes me so incredibly happy. Someone's understood these teachings and just the bliss you feel. I said this even last night, I remember just the first jhana, what you're experiencing that is Sambuddhassa. That's how the Buddha described it. Sambuddhi is a word for enlightenment. It literally is a taste of enlightenment. And this is so profound to understand. I also mentioned yesterday, how many of you have been to the 4 holy sites of Buddhism?
3.
3. Over there. What are the 4 holy sites of Buddhism?
Lumbini, Bhagavato, Shinagami.
No. I always ask trick questions. Always. It's first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. That's in the Chula Hattipadopama Sutta. the first teaching which the Arahat Mahinda gave in Sri Lanka. That was how he taught. That's how Sri Lanka received Buddhism from the beginning. Inside. That's where you go on pilgrimage. So you don't have to go and get an airline ticket. You don't have to go all this travelling around. Just go deep inside. I love that teaching. I know the Indian Tourist Board don't like me, but nevertheless, you can feel what the Buddha felt. No difference. If you want to find out, what is real Buddhism, you can experience it. Going to those places is also helpful. It's not as helpful as actually having a similar mind to a Buddha, just for an hour or two, and seeing the power of this path. Go on, yeah.
Is that remotely accessible in a busy level?
Yes.
Because it feels very inaccessible. I practice every day, practice for a long time. That is not.
What do you do?
Unless I maybe just don't know how to do it.
Exactly.
Can you just tell me?
Let go. You totally let go.
Totally.
You give up. Stop doing anything. Stop judging. And relax to the max. How do you relax? You feel your body and just no tightness, no tension.
Yeah, there's not many tension involved.
Not many, but no tension. Relax to the max. Lying down is fine. I was lying down in a hospital. Lying down is fine, but often sitting down is more comfortable for me. And so you do the same with your mind. No past, no future. Be kind to the present moment until things start to disappear.
Like we did at the beginning, was that?
Yeah, that's good, yeah. The art of disappearing. And bit by bit, your body disappears. You can't feel anything in your body. You can't hear. You can't see. If you did open your eyes, you couldn't see anything. In other words, all those things get lost. So that's always my final wish for everybody. Get lost.
I'll report back.
We always think that we've got to attain things. And Ajahn Chah kept on saying this. I never understood it until he kept on it again and again and again and again and again. It's just, you don't meditate to get something. You meditate to lose things. Be a loser. I must love being a loser. You can relax being a loser. Look at me, I'm a loser. I don't have any income. I don't have any permanent place I can stay. Always on the move. Actually, I do have a monastery where I'm welcomed. But nevertheless, that when you don't have anything, you don't possess anything, how much more free do you feel? I'll put this in quickly. I did mention this. It's really weird that as a Buddhist monk, I don't have any money, no credit card, no bank account. But nevertheless, I came here on business class. That's kind of weird. And I do this because even the committee, in BSWA, they said, Ajahn Brahm, you're an important asset. We want to preserve you. So you must, on long distance flights, go business class. Well, I don't buy the ticket anyway, they do. They pay for it. So I'm very amenable. Sorry? Okay, Okay. So we've got to wrap up soon, but we've got to say something about why I keep coming over here. Why I keep coming over here is to support equity in Buddhism. My goodness, this is like a no-brainer. And I don't know why there have not been enough bhikkhunis here in UK. They're really growing over in Australia, over in New Zealand. Is it New Zealand? Yeah. But America. But why? And recently, the hottest news, June the 16th. What day is it today? 17th, 18th. Just 2 days ago. 1 day ago. In Sri Lanka. Recently I went to Sri Lanka and managed to score on a time with the new Prime Minister in Sri Lanka. And I went to see her to tell her, look, you know, that it's a new government to create more peace and harmony in this land. Why can't we acknowledge bhikkhunis in Sri Lanka and give them ID cards, which they're not allowed to have? And so that's been taken up by the Supreme Court in Sri Lanka, and it was yesterday they voted 2-1 to acknowledge the existence of bhikkhunis. It's wonderful news, but it's gross that's taken so long to actually give them judicial accreditation. And they said that because not having bhikkhunis
It's a violation.
is a... Oops, it's gone again.
Basically, it's a violation of fundamental human rights.
Violation of fundamental human rights to not give bhikkhunis equity, give women equity in Buddhism, in Sri Lanka. I hope that you're really proud that at last that has happened, which means that the equity now has got no real obstacles. It's going to happen more and more and more and more and more and more in so many different countries. Is it fair, you know, to have really good women who really want to become bhikkhunis and to say you can't? It makes no sense. It's Vinaya-wise. And I taught Vinaya to everybody when I was young. I was a Vinaya master. I still know my stuff. And the Buddha said when he sat under the Bodhi tree, he was approached after his enlightenment by Mara, the tempter, and said, okay, I acknowledge it, you're fully enlightened, fair enough. But now, just give up and just disappear. You know, teaching others is a big burden. Is teaching others a big pain in the butt? It is. But nevertheless, you do it for compassion, for kindness, for joy. Of course you're going to teach others. And the Buddha replied, I will not just disappear. I will teach until I've established a powerful, flourishing Sangha of monks. Understand that. Until I've established a powerful, flourishing Sangha of bhikkhunis, a powerful, flourishing group of laymen, powerful, flourishing group of lay women, and every other gender too. Equity. Obviously, why not? This is, may all beings be happy and well. All means everyone included, no matter what race or religion or whatever. That's a strange thing to say, but why not? And so that's one of the reasons why the Buddha said, I will not enter parinirvana until that occurs. And then 3 months before the parinirvana, at the Chapala shrine outside of Vaisali, that's where Mara came to see the Buddha again and said, you've done all of that. You've fulfilled your promise. There's a flourishing Sangha of bhikkhunis, a flourishing Sangha of monks, a flourishing community of lay men and lay women. getting these great experiences in meditation and wisdom. So now you can go. The Buddha said, yeah, actually, that's my promise. So he said, in 3 months' time, I will renounce the life faculty. And that was at Kusinara. And I love quoting that. You can read that for yourself. It was like the Buddha's mission. And so he restarted that, that missing link in Buddhism. The Bhikkhunis, Mahayana are Bhikkhunis for a long time. But now in Theravada, and also in England. I told Venerable Chanda many times that after doing a bhikkhuni ordination over in Australia, reviving it, I remember this lady came up to me when I visited UK and said, Theravada Buddhism is very dark in UK. Oops. It's okay, Ma, I won't say the wrong things about you again. Buddhism is very dark in UK. And this was my homeland. This is where I started off being a Buddhist. It's where I got so much support. And I told you this many times, it's still very strong in my heart. But I can't just avoid you. I got to make sure there is a flourishing Bhikkhuni Sangha in UK before I can go anywhere.
Yeah. It's starting.
Yeah, starting, yeah. Where's the trainees? There they go. Two over there. Look at them. Amazing. And it's one of your trainees' birthday tomorrow, isn't it?
It is.
Where's she gone?
And I go, gee. Should we sing happy birthday?
Yeah, come on. Can we?
Yeah.
Okay, she, come to the front.
She won't mind.
Yeah, come on here. So we do some Buddhist chanting. Yeah, 30 tomorrow.
30 tomorrow.
Okay, 1, 2. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Abhigarakanchi. Happy birthday to you. Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Ah, it's pretty cute. So, who's the next? But just to know it's open. It can be done now. And now I want to see it being done. And they can have flourishing nun sanghas all over the world. Bhikkhuni sanghas. Go on. Go on.
Oh yeah. Let's see. Is it on already?
Yep.
So you can come visit us if you want. So we have a lovely place near Oxford, which is secluded but not unsafe. It's just close enough to the city, just far enough away to be really, really conducive, easy to come to, and quiet and peaceful. And I think many of you have been, but not enough of you. So please do come along. And it's only a small place. It's going to be a residence for bhikkhunis, so it's where we live, first of all. And from there, when we grow more teachers, more Dhamma teachers, then we can do more retreats locally and also overseas. So that's what I'm focusing on now. Now a lot of my energies are going into training these two wonderful young women as future Sangha members, if that's the way their path leads. And I wouldn't have been able to do any of this without Ajahn Brahm's support, which has been absolutely steadfast through every possible up and down.
Well,
including giving me the ordination.
Yeah.
At least making the way for the ordination. The bhikkhunis do the ordination. But
yes.
You have made that possible.
And I would have been able to do that without you.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Oh, yes.
but it really is the kind of... okay, it's always hard to put enough good words to this, but the immense gratitude that arises with true confidence in the well-practiced Sangha that has enabled me to carry on through every possible obstacle. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to you, Ajahn Brahm, as my teacher, and an example of all those beautiful things we've been talking about, the kindness, the compassion, and the working for fairness and equity. So all of these things are happening, you know, all these kind of changes in the constitutions of countries like Sri Lanka. And hopefully, you know, it's harder sometimes to change the actual sanghas, you know, where there's so much kind of power in the male sangha and so much unwillingness to change because of fear or whatever reasons that might be. But instead of worrying about that, you know, we just get on with what we do, because I think for women, we just want to find a path to liberation, and many of us have the aspiration to do that as renunciates. It's a choice that we need to be given. You know, it's not something that men can give us or not, but it's a choice that was there, that the Buddha created, and that we need to have available, you know, and not be barred from that based on gender or race or anything else at all. So, yes, lay women can become enlightened, at least almost all the way. And that's wonderful if that's the path for you, but for some people it's not. And for me, it was a calling from a very young age. So I know that, you know, there are other women with that same calling, and gender non-binary folks and transgender folks, and we're trying to make a way, a path for them as well. So please get involved. You're very welcome. Even men can come and stay. Yay! Matthias is relieved because he comes at least twice a year. So
and I want to express my gratitude. I want to express my gratitude to each one of you. So I'm always bowing to monks and nuns and saying thank you to the monks and nuns, but thank you, each one of you, all the contributions you have made. And sometimes a monk may be very old, a nun may be very old, but still we respect your feedback to let us know if we're doing things wrong. It's one of the reasons why I got into this helping out re-establish Bhikkhuni Sangha. There was this nun, Venerable Yifa, Mahayana nun, for the Folkwang Shan tradition. I love going to conferences because there you're sitting on the stage and people can criticize you. And you accept that. And you grow from that. And she said, Ajahn Brahm, you are so patronizing to the idea of bhikkhunis. And she criticized me very fiercely. And I thought, actually, you're right. Thank you. And after that, that caused me to make sure we did an ordination of bhikkhunis, to start off in our tradition, a really strong bhikkhuni sangha. Criticism is sometimes helpful, often helpful, but it's done with the goodwill and wanting something wonderful to happen in the future. So each one of you, thank you. Thank you, each one. Yeah, okay. Over there in the corner, see those two people in the corner over there, in the naughty corner? It's not naughty corner. More information, get over there. Okay, I'm supposed to. Are we going to be fined for overstaying a welcome? Okay, it's not our hall, so we better get out quick.
no, not.
No, it's fine.
We can mingle and then.
Okay. Oh, great. So intermingle time.
Let them mingle.
Okay. I won't be able to stop them. So mingle away. Okay. Okay. Sadhu.
Do they know what it means? It sounds strange if you
know what the word sadhu means? Awesome. Actually, it's a better word these days. That's an old word. Cool. Cool. Okay. 3 calls. Cool. 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 Thank you. Why not?